Hey, what's up, guys? Showtime, Shred Fitness over here. Size, growth, get big. All right. So today's subject, very controversial one: life versus death. And do we have the right to choose to take our own lives or somebody else's life for that matter? And if it's a consensual thing and they're not able to do it themselves, is it okay for a doctor to not make that decision for them? Obviously very unethical. I think anybody would agree that it's not the doctor's choice, and I'm tired of taking care of this patient, let's pull the plug, right? Any good doctor, good nurse, good civilian, good person is going to tell you that. That's not the controversy. What about people who are in anguish and pain, be it mental, physical, or both, that just want to say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I've gone through all of the thought process, talking with family members, loved ones, and everything else, and across the board, thinking that this is the right decision. We've got the doctor in place to help us with this process. Can we do it? And the person is a seemingly sound mind and conscious being, or even more conclusive, there's been conversations with this person when they were 100% healthy, active, successful, and everything else, and this already came up. And it's, if I'm in this condition and I'm miserable and I can't do anything, and I'm in, worse than that, I'm in pain. I'm in physical pain. Every minute of every day hurts physically. Painful for me, painful for people to watch. I do not want to be in that situation. Help me out of my misery. And if you look at it with dogs, we do this all the time. That's a family member to us, right? It rips our hearts out if we're really attached to one of the dogs in our family, and it's a family member and everything else. And we love the same thing more than life itself. If it's not, we don't have children in the home, right? And it's their only companion, so to speak. And that dog is in incredible pain. It can hardly walk, and it can't even voice. It might even want to be around still. And we still say it's best for the dog to take it out of its misery, and we do what we say is the right, humane thing, and we put the dog to sleep so it can rest in peace. And supposedly these dogs don't even have souls, right? If you look at a religious aspect of things, a lot of Christians believe that dogs don't go to heaven, they don't have souls, which is completely a thing that we don't know for sure, right? Some religious people do think they know for sure one way or the other. They do or they don't, and they'll, stand by their beliefs in that. And my personal belief is, I don't know, right? But it's not my call, obviously, right? And there's such thing as go out in an overall or whatever else. That's God's decision, right? On what happens to that dog after it passes away. Fair enough. Or the universes, if you're an atheist and you don't believe in God at all, or a higher being or higher power, whatever else. So come back to people now. So where my conflict is how come it's okay and humane if you're a person who's for putting the dog out of its misery, even if you love that dog, but you think it's unethical and everything else that this person screaming and yelling in pain and has voiced their belief systems that they want to be put out of their misery if it ever happens, and they're begging and pleading for you to do that when they were already telling you before they were sick that if that ever happened to them, that in their sound mind and body when they made the decision, you had it before and after, and then you make the decision for the dog that can't speak and can't talk and say it's the right thing to do because it's not fair for it to be in pain, but then you say suck it up, buttercup, to a human being who's in the same amount of pain or worse. There's where my conflict is, and I think it's kind of like you should be one with the other. Either it's right or it's wrong, right? If it's okay for a dog, it should be okay for a human being. That's my opinion. But I'm curious, what's your opinion? Is it always wrong? Is it only right if the person has the choice and then they have that choice? Or is it just wrong altogether? Or if the person of sound mind and body says, let's just write it out, it's wrong and this and that, and then they get in that situation, they go, change my mind, help me, I'm in pain. Can that person change their mind? Are they of sound and body and mind enough to make those decisions? And you might say, well, they're a little off. Well, what about somebody who's might do it anyways, right? And now you got the problem of that athlete who I've mentioned in previous videos who freaking did a 100-yard dash or whatever the Olympic event was, and he blew it and didn't make the Olympics, and he was a favorite to freaking win the gold medal. I can't remember the guy's name. Was so devastated he drank Drano to try to off himself, right? So it did not succeed. That's the worst thing. He lived. Now, granted, if they were able to somehow save him to where he has a decent life now and he's not in pain, great, but you know, I would see him having complications for the rest of his lifespan, whether it be short or long. But, you know, I would rather somebody, now if he lived, I need to follow up and see what happened to that guy. If he lives a quality life after that, you can say, okay, good, I'm glad nobody assisted him with that process. But if he was in pain for the rest of his life, it's kind of like, it's better, in my opinion, to do it right the first time, right? Where there's little or no pain. Like, for example, Dr. Kevorkian is a great example of somebody who believed, and he's got people on videotape and everything saying, this is my choice, it's my right. He's got his family members right next to him. We're down with this, we're in agreement, everything else. That's, in my opinion, it's okay. But I think it's a personal power and choice thing. I've always been about that. And what pisses me off about some people is they're my body, my choice when it comes to things like abortion, but then if they're somebody that wants to, for example, do drugs, it's like, you can't do that. It's like, what about my body, my choice? Now, why are you okay with it in this situation, but not this situation? What's the difference, right? Why can you decide for somebody else what is their choice, their choice on this, but they can decide for this person and the person they're carrying, you know, and then people who are so much against it, if you go, well, what about if the mom and the baby are probably going to die anyways, but if you save the mom's life by having the abortion, that the mom will for sure live when the baby probably for sure would have died, you know, and then the people who are against it go, oh, that's a different scenario, and da-da-da-da. It is, and that's why you should stay out of the people's business and stuff, right? And that's why, you know, now people who use birth control and they have 8 to 10, yeah, shame on them, because that's a horrible thing to use that as birth control, especially if they're going to be going to the third trimester and everything else. And the only reason they're doing it is because I don't want the baby. And no medical reason or anything behind it. It's just they're being selfish. They want the baby. Well, don't get pregnant 8 to 10 times, right? There's preventative measures. Once or twice, it could be an accident. 8 to 10 times, it's not an accident. That's just not giving a shit. And just using, you know, murder as the choice to get rid of it. Because at that point, it is murder because it's an I don't give a fuck thing. And that's not right. But if you do, you know, 1 or 2, it's a huge medical reason and everything else behind it. And you've got a lot of thought process going behind it, even if it's the third trimester, but the mom will probably die and the baby will probably die too, or the baby will probably be in a lot of pain and this and the other thing. It's not my choice, right? That's nothing to do with me, especially when I know the people, right? Those people stand by and like, no, never, and this and that and the other thing. Or they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I made the wrong decision. Freaking meanwhile, because the person didn't want to talk about it, they're being judgmental and shutting the house on fire and shit. It's like, no, you stay, mind your business, right? So that's the whole thing. But I think you need to be consistent, right? If it's okay for dogs, it should be okay for humans. If you're not okay with it, but it's across the board, I have more respect for that, right? Same thing with the other issues, right? So, and there's definitely an exception to policy, though, with the other thing, right? And you don't even want to get into that too much with people, because sometimes it kills them inside to make that kind of a decision, especially if it's a medical one. You don't want to fucking bring that shit up, right? It's gonna tear their heart out every time they have to explain it. Something that's not even anybody else's fucking business, right? And it's something they fucking thought about forever and may or may not regret it, or they still might firmly know that it was the right choice because baby mom would have died, but they still want to fucking talk about it, right? And it's a fucking mind your business thing. Mind your fucking business, right? I had my reasons and it was a damn good one, and stand on my business, right? But again, people use it as birth control repeatedly. Shame on you. Use proper birth control. There's plenty of stuff out there that will, you know, to use all the birth controls and still get pregnant 8 to 10 times. It's pretty far-fetched. I mean, I guess if you're one of these people that can win the lottery and a 1 in 3.5 million shot repeatedly, maybe if you're doing those kind of things too in the casino, maybe I can kind of see, the odds being against that 8 to 10 times. But if not, you just ain't caring. You're not trying to prevent anything. You're just thinking about yourself, and that's it. So that's not good. But anyways, that's again my take on all that stuff. I just go by my own thing, right? If I'm gonna, get somebody pregnant, obviously I'm gonna be taking care of that kid, and that's the way it is. And then if it's somebody else's situation, I probably don't need to hear about it, right? Unless it's like a really evil person doing that kind of shit on purpose. So it's like, you just gotta kind of not get too involved, right? Because some of these people, even you push to have kids, they don't want them. And you'll want to encourage them to also do the abortion, or the adoption sometimes then, because if they're freaking, cooking meth in their house and they're bringing random guys in and all these other types of things, that could be even worse, right? Because now the kid might get sold into fucking prostitution or freaking abused multiple times, and that's not a life at all, right? So if that kind of a person is going to be having kids in the first place, you better make sure they either have an epiphany and freaking, clear themselves of those types of people, have no associations with people with those lifestyles, or freaking, you're not going to provide a safe home somehow, some way for your kids. You need to give them up for adoption, right? You can't, unless you're a functional drug addict, right? There are some functional drug addicts out there, but then you better at least fucking clean yourself up through the pregnancy so the kid doesn't come out with no arms, no legs, stuff, right? Or half a brain or something, right? Some kids, their parents they're already a couple of patties shy of a Big Mac. Last thing you want to do is have them be really, give them a really bad hand in life and freaking dealing with a bad card hand when freaking they already got the odds against them. If they're growing up, they're gonna grow up poor and parents that may share a brain and still not quite be very logical people and not very structured or have good rituals and program in the house. And last thing you want to do is fucking have those parents be high throughout the whole pregnancy and then come up with a quarter brain instead of half a brain. At least with half a brain, they got a shot. So anyways, it's showtime. It's showtime Shred Fitness over here. Begin, put in the comments below there, are you for putting people out of their misery if they are of sound mind or body, or are you just against it? No questions asked. Your opinion is your opinion. I respect it either way. I'm just curious how many people see that way. I even think though that freaking there's a reason to kill people. This is not legal to, but it doesn't mean you should, right? And there's other times where I kind of think you kind of should, even if it's against the law, because it might save other people's lives down the road. But the problem with that is, where you draw that line, because you got all kinds of people thinking that somebody shouldn't be here. You can't be having to be a judge and jury, and that's the problem. So if somebody's a multi-serial killer, right? Or that's no-brainer, or somebody who's a serial killer, a serial rapist, or something like that, right? They can't keep their hands off of children and things like that, and they can't fix their problem somehow. Then, yeah, I kind of agree. If you take that person out, it's probably going to make the world a better place, right? But there's going to be other people who think, well, that guy fucking stole my sandwich out of the fridge and he didn't even know it was my sandwich. He doesn't deserve to be here anymore. You can't whack somebody for that, right? And especially if it was over miscommunication. Didn't even know whose sandwich it was. Thought it was like fair game type of thing because they thought it was a communal fridge for, any co-worker can go in there and grab stuff. They thought it was or there was snacks out there that belonged to one person. They thought it was for the whole staff. Sometimes it's not even that, it's miscommunication, right? So You can't whack somebody for that, right? But there are people who would do that if it was legal. So you can't just make murder legal. That's a problem. But self-defense, or just cleaning up the streets a little bit by getting rid of the really bad guys and people who take drugs, guys, or even selling them for the habit, doesn't necessarily make them, as long as they're not selling to kids, it doesn't necessarily mean they're bad people, right? Because you haven't walked them out in their shoes, right? Sometimes there's no love in the family. Sometimes they're completely abused, physically or sexually or both, and then they're all fucked up in the head, right? And they're not hurting nobody. They're just getting their fix, right? So just because somebody put something in their bodies, in my opinion, is my body, my choice if you're still a good person, right? But there's very few functional drug addicts in the world, right? And the few who are, there's still only a certain percentage of them that are still going to have character, integrity, and make the right decision and be honest and all those types of things, right? And this is going to be a smaller percentage. But you got to remember, just because something's legal doesn't always mean it's okay for your body. It doesn't always make it healthy. And just because something's illegal doesn't mean that somebody's going to have a problem or be a person who's bad because it's illegal, because the government decides what people can't put in their bodies, right? Caffeine can be abused. Aspirin can kill people. They take a whole bottle. Freaking, insulin can be overdosed on. That's legal. You don't get what I'm saying here. It's just because it's legal doesn't mean that you're going to be safe. And just because it's not legal doesn't necessarily mean it's bad if you do it in moderation. And that's where I clash with the government. They shouldn't be telling doctors what they can and can't prescribe to their patients to get people into something that maybe enhances the quality of their life or whatever, or maybe be temporary or permanent, get addicted to that, and they say, oh, you can't take that no more, and then because the government's going to shut me down and take my license, so I have to not prescribe that drug anymore. So then the person is forced to either quit, even if it's benefiting them and they still need it, or if they don't need it but they're addicted, they can't get off of it sometimes, and if they can't, then they go and they buy it on the street. Now it's worse because it's not properly dosed and it's not medically supervised and all these other types of things, and it's well overcharged because it's black market and everything else, or it's cheap but it's lethal, right? And it's just not, the war on drugs is not a good war because it's profitable for people, and so bad guys and even sometimes good guys make a bad decision, do the wrong thing for the right reasons, support the families or whatever else, and now you got a problem, right? And it's better to have the doctors do it and be supervised to where they still do it fairly ethically, right? And not jam it down the throats of their customers. Their customers do it because they want to do it and they ask for it, and they do that or they buy it on the street. If I was a licensed physician, I would want to have the right to medically supervise that client and only give them X amount and read them the riot act if they are abusing it, so I can at least help them, not just say fuck off and they go do their own thing and they go overdose somewhere, or they get their stuff laced with fentanyl or whatever else, even if it's weed, and fucking die. So that's my point on that. But everybody's different, like I said. But you take the criminal aspect out of the drugs, you put the black market out of business, and you do like what you do with alcohol and the marijuana. You overcharge on it, you tax it 4 different times, and you make money off it, and everybody wins. The drug addicts get their drugs, the drug addicts to do the marijuana, or the people that need medicine do it medicinally, or the alcoholics who need the booze, right? Everybody wins. So when you do it the other way, that doesn't work, and the black market takes over, just like when they had banned alcohol. That was what happened, and the government realized they couldn't do it no more, and boom, that's it, done. Black market gets involved and the government loses control of it. But then what they do is make it legal again, and guess what? Government wins because the government makes some money. Black market's got to do something else to make their money. So it's better, right? So, and you can make laws against alcohol better, and education against abusing it. Drinking and driving is illegal for obvious reasons, so you can educate people about it better, rather than just saying, don't do it. And then the people that do it are not always educated on it, right? Because people that sell it are usually going to sit down and be the doctors and therapists in their commercials against it and things like that. So that's what you got to do. So anyways, it's been way too long of a video. I'm probably going to have to break it up into 4 smaller ones. But take care and God bless. Again, in the comments below, are you for banning drugs or against it? Legalizing illegal, making it illegal, assisted suicides for people who are in pain only or not at all, etc., etc. All right, take care and God bless. Size, growth, get big. All right.